Izumi is a worthless bum with the worst luck in human history, always getting into accidents. However, his life changed when he somehow rizzes up the most popular girl in school who will do anything to protect him. It all starts on Izumi's first day as a second-year student, and he gets ready faster than ever because he wants to walk to school with his new girlfriend. After his mom tells him to be super careful, he heads out, and barely 5 seconds later, he falls flat on his face before Truck Kun passes by and tries to fry his lungs with smoke. Despite getting into several misfortunes due to his terrible bad luck, he reaches the station just in time to meet Shikamori, the girl of his dreams, who fell for him despite knowing that his life is like an endless rerun of Final Destination. As they walk to school together, Truck Kun spins the blocks for a proper attack this time, but Shikamori pulls Izumi to safety. When he apologizes for also putting her in danger, she grabs his face and says he never has to apologize to her, which gives him butterflies in his stomach. Later, they make it to school and find everyone gathered around the notice boards to see their classroom placement. Izumi immediately starts praying that they get into the same class again, and this makes Shikamori blush, but she says she will always come to see him if they get separated. They then join everyone else to check for their names and get excited because they are both in the same class again. Later on in class, Izumi's bad luck strikes again when the board cleaner slips from the teacher's hand and is about to hit him, but his knight in pink hair is right there to protect him again. However, she ends up covered in the cleaner's dust, so Izumi cleans off her head and makes her blush. After she runs to the ladies' room in panic, 3 worthless loners ask Izumi how someone with his level of bad luck is dating the hottest girl in school. As they continue mocking him, she returns and overhears their conversation. After she walks in and asks Izumi to follow her to the library, the loner squad immediately shuts their mouths and prays she didn't hear any of that. However, as soon as Izumi walks out, she hits them with a death stare that sends shivers down their spines. Once outside, Shikamori tells him not to worry about those losers, but he doesn't care because he only wants to protect Shikamori from his bad luck. Later, Izumi meets his best friend, Inuzuka, so they can hang out after school. However, on the way out, they run into Shikamori and her friends, Neko and Hashimitsu, so they all decide to make it a group thing and head to a bowling alley. Once there, they decide that whoever has the lowest points has to treat the winner to anything they want. Izumi then asks Shikamori if she has ever tried bowling before, so she claims to be a newbie just to look cute and innocent to him. Minutes later, it's finally Izumi's turn, and after he gets the lowest points, Shikamori decides to play badly as well, so he won't feel like a total failure. However, after Izumi starts hyping her up, she realizes that she doesn't have to put on an act to please him and proceeds to Aura Farm until everyone in the alley starts glazing her. She then high-fives Izumi for cheering her on, and he almost passes out because of how amazing she is. Later, Izumi asks Shikamori what she wants since he scored the least amount of points while she scored the highest. Luckily, Shikamori decides to save him from poverty by saying she only wants to walk together with him. While they're at it, a strong gust of wind sends a newspaper straight to his noggin, but Shikamori saves him again without even looking back, making Izumi wonder if he is dating a ninja from the Hidden Leaf Village. He then apologizes for always exposing her to his bad luck, but she reminds him never to apologize because she likes keeping him alive. The next moment, she asks if he still feels bad about what those 3 losers were saying in class. But Izumi says they were actually telling the truth because no one expected a walking bad omen to date every guy's dream girl. As Shikamori tells him to stop thinking that way, a sign snaps and falls right towards Izumi's head. After kicking the sign away, Shikamori grabs Izumi's face again and tells him that other people's opinions are irrelevant because she will always protect him. While Izumi notices his lightsaber charging, Shikamori gets embarrassed because she has never been open about her feelings before. Several days later, the school starts a sports tournament. While Izumi and Inuzuka get selected for the soccer team, the girls end up with volleyball, but then Izumi gets worried that his bad luck might affect everyone. After Inuzuka tells him to worry about keeping himself alive, Shikamori dashes in and asks for the time they will be playing, but Izumi hasn't even bothered to check. He then notices that she did something different with her hair, so he compliments her. Inuzuka, on the other hand, notes that the hairstyle might affect her during the game. Moments later, Shikamori finds the timetable for every game, and while she reads it, Izumi wonders if he can actually help his team win. He quickly accepts that there is no way his bad luck won't interfere, so he decides to focus on cheering for Shikamori since it's the only way to hide the fact that he is useless. Unfortunately, he soon learns that they are both playing at the same time and won't be able to support each other. Shikamori then tells him that they are apparently going up against a really tough opponent, which means she needs someone in her corner now more than ever. The next moment, Izumi takes her hand and promises to send his love and support even if he can't be there to cheer her on. Much later, the soccer match starts, so Izumi gets in position for the very first pass, but his shoe snaps right as he takes his first step. As he gets a face full of dirt, Neko laughs at him, but Shikimori gets worried because he might get even more unlucky as the game progresses. After recalling how he gave her all his positive energy, she decides to send some good vibes his way as well. Her good luck spell manages to keep him on his feet for a couple of minutes, but he soon trips over himself again and accepts that he will only hold the team back. Just as he gets back up, he hears Shikimori and Neko yelling, and thinks they came up with a special cheer just for him until he faces the game and gets knocked out by the ball. Minutes later, Shikimori joins him in the infirmary, and when he reminds her that she has a volleyball game to play, she says it won't be a problem since the game hasn't started yet. She then runs her fingers through his hair and says it looks really good before spotting a huge scar right above his hairline. After Izumi says it was probably from the time Truck Kun tried to annihilate his entire family, she gets even more concerned for his safety. But this makes him feel embarrassed because he should be the one protecting her. He then promises to do so, but she responds by getting even closer to express how much she cares. Izumi once again reminds her of the game, but she says nobody will notice if she climbs into the bed with him. Izumi immediately turns red in his face and glizzy, but then Shikimori claims she was only playing and quickly leaves to hide how embarrassed she feels. By then, Hakamitsu's team has just managed to score a point in the basketball game, so she tries to stop her lungs from imploding. Neko notices this and asks if she is ready to give up, but she refuses and claims she is just starting. The next moment, Neko sees three side characters rushing to the other side of the court to meet Kamiya, a smoking hot chick who also happens to be the ace of the school's volleyball team. After the girls leave, Neko tells Kamiya to enjoy their cheers because she is about to get her first taste of defeat. Kamiya responds with a calm smile since it's not her first time going against a deluded wannabe. Just then, Shikimori finally shows up, so Kamiya walks away to prepare for the match while Neko explains what they are up against. Minutes later, Izumi returns to the field to help Inuzuka feel better about losing the game. He then suggests that they go cheer for the girls, and after Inuzuka agrees, they head to the court and see that Shikimori's team is losing like crazy because Kamiya has been showing off. However, after Izumi starts cheering for Shikimori, she decides to get the win no matter what just to impress him. As she continues playing, Izumi gets a closer look at Kamiya and recognizes her, but he decides to focus on supporting his girl first. Thanks to his constant cheering, Shikimori starts playing like a crack-out professional and actually manages to win against Kamiya. Izumi immediately rushes over to celebrate her since that's all he is ever good for. The celebrations continue in class, and after Izumi says he wishes he were even a little more athletic like her, Shikimori tells him that his effort is all that matters, even if he will always be an unlucky loser. Just then, several girls rush inside to get autographs from Shikimori, and although Izumi is still happy for her, he wonders if her new celebrity status will affect their relationship. Days later, it actually does because everyone is still gushing over her, which gives them less time together. Just as Izumi tells Inuzuka about it, a stray ball flies towards his head again, but this time Inuzuka jumps in and takes the hit. Izumi immediately rushes to his aid and feels bad for letting him take the hit, but Shikimori gets jealous because it looks like he cares more for Inuzuka than he does for her. Much later, Izumi's bad luck strikes again and ends with Inuzuka getting a broken arm and having to go home early. After beating himself up over it, Izumi decides to head home as well, but then he slips on the stairs and thinks it's finally time to meet his maker. Luckily, Shikimori shows up right on time to save him. She then asks why she is even trying to go home without her. So Izumi reminds her that she is now famous and says he didn't want to bother her since she spends most of her time with fangirls now. Shikimori gets surprised to hear him talking like this and says she only wants to spend time with him. But Izumi gets shocked by this because who thought she would have found a real man to date by now? Shikimori then says he is the one who has been too busy with his bestie Inuzuka, that he doesn't want to spend time with her anymore. This causes Izumi to realize how foolish he has been. So he admits that he just misses her and triggers a rush of emotions she never expected to feel. Several days later in class, Inuzuka hands Izumi 2 movie tickets so he can use them over the weekend. But Izumi is surprised by this and asks why he would gift him tickets. Inuzuka then explains that he will be too busy to use them, so it makes no sense to let them go to waste. After Inuzuka leaves, Shikimori, who overheard their conversation, starts twitching because she doesn't want Izumi to think she desperately wants to be his plus one. The next moment, Izumi walks over to ask, but she excitedly says yes before he can finish the question. Later on, Izumi is in his room, fantasizing about all the amazing memories they are about to make, but he recalls what happened the last time they went on a date. The gods of bad luck were working overtime on that day because absolutely everything went wrong. Thankfully, Shikimori was simply happy that she got to spend time with him. Now, Izumi decides to do everything in his power to make sure this date is a success. For starters, he packs everything they will need if there is a sudden storm during the date, but a couple of minutes later, he goes overboard and ends up with a bag that almost snaps his spine in two. Around the same time, Shikimori reads a fashion magazine to look for new outfit inspiration because she is worried about looking bad for the date. She eventually gets a couple of ideas, but after trying on multiple outfits, she remains nervous because none of them look good enough. Just then, her brother notices and asks about the person he is going out with because he never pays this much attention to what she is wearing. This makes her feel embarrassed, so she tells him to mind his business before resuming her dress rehearsal. Days later, Izumi heads out early for the date because he plans to get through the daily dose of bad luck before meeting Shikamori. However, just a couple of minutes later, he sees her and excitedly runs over to ask why she is also out early, but her beauty makes his brain glitch. After he manages a simple compliment to hide how obsessed he is, they get on the train, and Izumi immediately drifts off to a fantasy where he kisses Shikamori while watching the movie. Shikamori soon notices that he is blushing, but she thinks he just caught a fever, so she checks on him. Izumi then admits that he is just excited to be seeing a movie with her, and this makes her blush as well. When they finally get to the movies, Izumi asks Shikamori for the kind of movie she prefers, but she claims to be cool with whatever he likes. The next moment, Izumi tells her to choose a movie and says she always likes to do what he wants, even if she doesn't like this. Shikamori gets surprised to see that his usually spineless boyfriend now has some balls, so she picks a low-budget adaptation of Pennywise. Izumi gets horrified by the poster and wonders what kind of lunatic he is dating, but he hides this so she won't notice that he is still a scared femboy at heart. Once they get seated inside, he realizes that this is the perfect opportunity to prove that he is a man, so she tells Shikamori to lean on him if she gets scared. Minutes later, the movie starts, and after seeing Pennywise in action for the first time, Izumi's bladder reaches its breaking point, as he never expected it to be this scary. As he starts shaking like a hypothermic patient, Shikamori notices and takes his hand while looking like the man he has always wanted to be. Afterwards, the wannabe alpha admits that he almost pissed himself and thanks Shikamori for supporting him through the movie. Minutes later, they head to a restaurant to get something to eat, and Shikamori gets intrigued by a very expensive dish. She tells Izumi not to worry since it's obviously way out of his budget, but Izumi tells her not to worry because he brought his life savings just for this day. The next moment, he realizes that he lost his wallet despite the fact that he tied his string to it to avoid looking stupid. Once again, Shikamori tells him not to worry about it, so they leave the restaurant only to run into Izumi's parents along the road. After he explains what happened, they barely react and just tell Shikamori to come over for dinner instead of putting up with more of Izumi's bad luck. She gladly accepts. And much later, Izumi's mom serves an entire buffet at the dinner table. As they all get ready to feast, Makoto accidentally throws a fork right at Izumi's eyeballs, but Shikamori saves him and starts to realize where all his bad luck comes from. After dinner, Shikamori joins Makoto in the kitchen to clean the dishes while Izumi passes out on the couch. While cleaning up, Makoto thanks Shikamori for choosing to love their little bundle of bad luck. She goes on to explain how she was always worried about Izumi when he was younger because he always came back with a bruise or blood randomly, leaking out of a body part. As the years went on, she learned to live with it but still worries that he might never find true happiness as a result of always living in constant danger. When she begs Shikamori not to lose patience with him, Shikamori says that she actually fell in love with him because she sees his bad luck as proof of how amazing he is. She also promised to stay by his side because he always tries to do right by others when he already has a lot to worry about. This makes Makoto wonder how on earth her bad luck magnet of a son attracted a literal goddess. Much later, they wake Izumi up so he can walk Shikamori home, and he gets surprised to see that she has already gained buddies with Akisada. Minutes later, they both head out and Izumi once again apologizes for ruining their date. After telling him that it's really not a big deal, Shikamori asks for the kind of movie he likes to watch so they can see it next time. Several weeks later, Izumi finds a cool spot to escape the brutal summer heat and wonders how he can survive through the season without getting baked. Just then, Inuzuka and the others show up to discuss their plans for the summer, so he gets up to join them and immediately regrets it because of the sun. Luckily, Shikamori shows up right then with a cold bottle of water to help him feel better, so he thanks her. When Neko suddenly suggests going out the beach, Shikamori gets excited because she has always wanted to try it out. Izumi, on the other hand, gets sad because he can't handle sunburn burn, which in turn makes any trip to the beach really boring for everyone else. Just as he accepts that he might have to sit this one out, Inuzuka suggests going to the river instead, which surprises him. Izumi immediately says they don't have to change their plans just because of him, but Inuzuka insists and reminds him that the plan is for everyone to join summer together. After Izumi thanks them for being so considerate, Hashimitsu says that even a simple river would be too dangerous for the bad luck magnet. At this, Shikamori tells them not to worry since she will be there to protect him like always. However, when Neko starts teasing her about it, she gets embarrassed. Days later, the start date for the final exams is released, and after they all decide to lock in, Neko takes them to a mall under the guise of looking for a place to study, when she reveals that it's actually so they can shop for swimsuits. Inuzuka asks if she lives under a rock because only losers still buy swimsuits. After the others also remind Neko that they have all the basic supplies for a nice time at the beach, she insists that it's the best way to make it a memorable experience. Just then, Shikamori asks Izumi if he will be swimming in the river, and he immediately says no because his past trauma still gives him nightmares. The next moment, Shikamori hits him with a nasty side eye and says it's a shame, which makes Izumi realize that he just let his bad luck stop him from seeing her in a swimsuit. While Neko and Hachimitsu head inside his shop, Shikamori tries to figure out a new activity with Inuzuka and notices that Shikamori is distracted by something. She then takes a look and freezes in shock because he is staring at a gin mommy with more cakes than Shikamori could ever have. However, while Shikamori thinks he wants the model, Izumi is just wondering how the lady got 8 abs. Shikamori immediately dashes off, claiming she wants to use the ladies' room, but she heads to the Victoria's Secret section to find the same swimsuit as the model. The moment she grabs it, Hachimitsu and Neko spot her and ask why she wants to dress like your favorite corn star. Naturally, Shikamori gets embarrassed and explains that she only got it because Izumi was drooling over some poster girl. Seeing the hottest girl in school act so embarrassed over something like this causes Neko and Hachimitsu to smile, and they also remind Shikamori that she has always hated losing. Shikamori gets confused and wonders what this has to do with anything till Neko tells her about the day she first got a good look at her in the hallway. While she was immediately obsessed with becoming Shikamori's bestie, Hachimitsu couldn't care less and didn't even know that Shikamori was in their class. Much later, they finally got to meet each other during a basketball game, and Shikamori's obsession with victory made Neko even more intrigued. Back in the present, Shikamori is surprised to hear all this, but when she tries to continue talking about it, the girls decide to get her a nice swimsuit instead. Much later, they all return to Inuzuka and Izumi, who immediately notices how flustered Shikamori seems. When he asks why, she tells him it's nothing special, but he already knows she's capping because she barely reacts to anything else. The next day, after writing exams, the lovebirds walk home together, but Izumi spends the entire time sulking because his bad luck struck again just as he was about to start writing. Shikamori does her best to make him feel better about everything, but then a random dog spots Izumi and starts barking because it can also sense the bad vibes. Later on, Izumi continues sulking in bed and wonders why he was cursed with such a terrible life. He then gets a call from Shikamori, who claims she just wanted to hear his voice. This makes him feel a little better, so he tells her to look outside her window so they can enjoy the beautiful night sky together. When she asks why he loves looking at stars, he explains that Akasado always took him stargazing in the past, but his bad luck always got in the way, so he never got to enjoy the full experience. The next moment, Shikamori promises to make his stargazing dreams come true, but Izumi says he wants to go somewhere she loves instead. She gets surprised and asks why, so he reminds that she always wants to do something that makes him happy, which means he has been the one enjoying most of their dates. Now he wants to do what makes her happy, so he can also see a smile on her face and know that he is part of the reason she feels good. When Shikamori says she doesn't actually have anywhere she wants to go, Izumi gets upset and thinks she just doesn't want to hang out anymore. However, she explains that she only likes going to places with him and doesn't care where it is as long as they can have a good time together. Hearing this finally cures Izumi's sadness, and when Shikamori says they have to turn in for the night, he admits that he wants to see her right now. Shikamori quickly ends the call because she won't be able to keep her Kibi under control if he keeps talking like that. But she spends most of the night fantasizing about Izumi and wishing he could be with her in the room. The following week, they finally get done with exams and set out for the trip to the river. For once, Izumi's bad luck fails to ruin everything. But while they all get excited to cool off in the water, Neko and Inuzuka are only concerned with stuffing their faces, so they start working on the food together. Inuzuka is especially eager to get to slicing, but after he almost sends himself to the hospital, they make him take a time out. Izumi then offers to take over, and they all immediately prepare for a bloodbath. But Bro starts slicing like he was possessed by Gordon Ramsay, which causes Shikamori to feel butterflies in the special spot because she never knew he could cook. After they all learn that he has been helping his mom in the kitchen for years, Inuzuka says he will be able to steal every girl in school, but Shikamori immediately reminds them that he belongs to her. While they all continue making food, Shikamori sneaks off to the side to work on a personal project, especially for her man. She plans to prove that she is also special, but when she finally serves him the dish, Izumi takes one bite and senses his organs failing. He immediately drops to the ground, fearing that this culinary abomination is about to end his life, but Shikamori is surprised by this. She decides to also take a bite just in case he's overreacting, but she also gets weak in the knees because it tastes like a backed up sewer. Despite having his very first near-death experience, Izumi continues eating Shikamori's death dish and says he will gladly eat anything she cooks because she obviously made the effort to impress him. This almost makes her cringe right there, but she manages to control herself and becomes determined to work on her cooking skills just to impress him. Much later, they all get hungry for dessert, so Izumi decides to save everyone from Shikamori's kitchen disaster by whipping up the best s'mores they have ever tasted. As they start munching, he gets close to Shikamori to tell her that he made it especially for her. The next moment, she starts swallowing s'mores like she has a black hole in her belly. She then tells Izumi that she will gladly eat them anytime he makes them, but Izumi realizes that she is talking about eating something else.
Yeah, boy.
Minutes later, everyone finally decides to swim. But as they all head towards the water, Shikamori tells Izumi to make those s'mores when they get another alone time. Moments later, the rest of the gang is already having fun in the water, but Shikamori is too worried about how Izumi would react to her swimsuit. Before Izumi could react, they notice a little girl about to meet her maker, and he immediately dives in to save her. When he catches up, she gets scared and almost drowns him with punches, but he manages to get her back to a safe spot before his bad luck catches up to him. His leg cramps up and he starts drowning while Neko tries to convince Shikamori to show off her swimsuit. Just as Inuzuka finally notices that Izumi is missing, the girl he saved washes up to shore and is still bawling her eyes out because her knight in shining swim shorts is about to meet the Lord. Upon hearing this, everyone panics, but Shikamori is already used to Izumi's life being in danger, so she dives in and manages to pull him out of the water. She then blows up because he took a risk by playing Superman despite his bad luck, but when he apologizes for being careless, his voice melts her heart as usual. After everyone rushes over to check on him, the little girl and her mom also come over to thank Izumi. When she thanks him with a kiss on the cheek, Shikamori considers sending the little munchkin back to God, but they all stop her from losing it. Minutes later, they all get back to enjoying the water, but then Izumi finally sees Shikamori in her swimsuit. It gets an instant resurrection in his pants. After he compliments her and thanks the Anime gods for not letting his bad luck chase her away, they head to a local market to get clothes. Once there, they both get cones, and after Shikamori tells Izumi to try hers, he uses the opportunity to show off his tongue skills. Shikamori also tries to show him what her mouth can do when Inuzuka ruins the moment by inhaling most of Izumi's ice cream. After she verbally assaults him, they all head to the train station since it's getting late. Minutes later, everyone falls asleep except Izumi, who is feeling like life is finally looking good because he has somehow managed to get a friend group and a smoking hot girlfriend who wants to keep him safe instead of running away to avoid his bad luck. Eventually, he also falls asleep, and after waking up, Shikamori places his head on her shoulder so she can keep a close eye on him. Several days later, the gods of bad luck visit Izumi again and strike him down with a nasty fever, so he spends most of the day holed up inside. When Shikamori calls to check on him, Kit sees a news broadcast about a festival scheduled for tomorrow and asks if she wants to go with him. Naturally, the next day, Izumi's parents help him with the perfect outfit for the date, and Makoto especially gets emotional as she remembers going on festival dates back when her melons were not saggy. When Izumi says that Shikamori has never actually been to a festival, his dad suddenly gets intense and claims to have an important secret they need to talk about. Around the same time, Shikamori starts panicking because she still hasn't figured out how to wear her yukata. Fuji notices this and decides to save his sister from embarrassment by dressing her up like Japanese Kylie Jenner. However, instead of giving her a compliment like any normal brother, her verbally assaults her and leaves. Much later, Izumi reaches the festival venue first, hoping to ward off the bad luck before Shikamori shows up. He also prepared himself with 3 loaded wallets, just in case the Anime gods decide to test him again. When Shikamori finally shows up, they both freeze in shock, unable to handle how good they both look. After minutes of giving each other imaginary back shots, they walk around the venue to experience all the different games and activities. When Izumi buys some cotton candy and notices that Shikamori seems to be against it, he wonders if she has been forcing herself to accept all the sweet treats he has bought her. Shikamori then claims that she has actually started enjoying sweets thanks to him always buying them whenever he gets the chance. However, since she still hates diabetes, she passes on buying cotton candy for herself. Izumi then takes her to a game stand and becomes obsessed with winning a gift to show Shikamori that he is not a total waste of existence. The stand owner also hypes him, hoping he can win something to impress his super hot girlfriend. But Izumi fails to hit a single target to nobody's surprise. Shikamori then decides to try it out, and the stand owner gets skeptical because chicks don't usually have enough brain cells to shoot accurately. To his greatest shock, Shikamori summons the spirit of John Wick and hits every target like a military-grade sniper. However, instead of keeping the prize for herself, like deluded feminists, she gives it to Izumi and says it's proof of her love for him. Around the same time, Inuzuka and the others have also started trying out activities at the festival. When they finally run into the Lumberds, everyone ignores Izumi to gush about how good Shikamori looks. Inuzuka then suggests that they all play a fishing game, but what starts out as a friendly game to lighten the mood becomes a full-blown contest because Inuzuka desperately wants to win. After he easily defeats Izumi, Shikamori takes over as always to save her man's dignity, but Inuzuka sends her packing as well. Right before the fireworks show begins, Neko reminds Shikamori that she can spend time with Izumi, so the lovebirds run off to watch the fireworks together. However, just as Izumi tries to tell Shikamori about a special place he uses to get the best views, her sandal snaps. Izumi quickly helps her fix it, but by then she has already gotten painful blisters that make it impossible to keep walking. Despite this, Shikamori insists on knowing the special place Izumi was talking about, so he decides to tell her about the conversation he had with his dad earlier. Akasada had explained the direction to a sweet spot that no one else knows about so the lovebirds could enjoy their first festival together, but Izumi was surprised that his boring dad had such secrets, so he asked how he learned about the secret spot. Akasada then admitted that it was the same spot where he and Makoto started getting freaky to create him. After listening to all this, Shikamori becomes obsessed with seeing this secret spot, but Izumi refuses to let her go because her feet are still in pain. She gets upset by this and decides to save it for next year, but then Izumi tells her to get on his back because he still wants to make sure her first fireworks festival with him is unforgettable. As he carries her towards the spot, she looks at the fireworks already going off and feels all warm and fuzzy inside. The next moment, she realizes that Izumi will have to climb a flight of stairs to get to the spot, so she tries to stop him because it is obviously too much for his weak legs to handle. However, Izumi insists on going all the way and says he only wants to see her smiling, so they head up. Once there, Shikamori realizes why his parents couldn't stop themselves from smashing to the beautiful explosions, lighting up the sky. She then apologizes to Izumi for making him carry her all the way here, but he claims to be okay with it and says it doesn't change anything about the way he sees her. When he suddenly admits that he didn't ask her the previous year because he was worried about looking like a desperate loser, Shikamori reveals that she was actually hoping he would ask because she was the desperate one. She then says it doesn't matter since they finally got to experience watching fireworks together. After, Izumi decides to carry her all the way down again, but this time, his bad luck reactivates and almost sends them both on a one-way trip to the afterlife. Thankfully, Akasada saves them and reveals that he and Makoto have been watching them to make sure their first festival date is perfect. With that said, they offer the lovebirds a ride home because Izumi's knees might snap the next time he tries to carry Shikamori on his back. Weeks later, a new term begins, but everyone is mostly obsessed with preparations for a festival. Izumi finds himself in the group responsible for making costumes, and after seeing that Shikamori is having a blast with the guys in her group, he fears that she has already found a better-looking replacement for him. He then recalls that things were different last year because they were in the same group and spent a lot of time talking together. Eventually, though, he decides to lock in with the girls in his group and also starts having a little fun with the process. However, Shikamori, who has just noticed his pearly whites, gets pissed off because it seems like he doesn't even notice her absence. Just then, Neko enters with Inuzuka, who then sees the anger in Shikamori's eyes and fears that he did something to piss her off. Several days later, the festival finally starts, and when Izumi shows up at the school entrance, he's given a card with the number 44 on it and gets worried because he has always treated it like his unlucky number. After being surprised that they are still using a game from the previous year, he heads inside and hopes that his costume will be enough to restore all the aura he has lost in recent times. Unfortunately, literally everyone hates it and tells him to take it off because seeing his ugly face is much better. While he takes their insults as jokes and barely pays them any mind, Shikamori can't shake off her insecurity. So Izumi compliments her Alice in Wonderland getup. She also returns the favor to help him feel a little better about his looks, and just a few minutes later, they all get into position in their various clubs. Izumi receives the role of waiter, but just like he feared earlier on, the bad luck quickly catches up to him as he slips on a napkin. Luckily though, Shikamura is right there to save him from a generational aura debt. The next day, Izumi is told to take care of the library, and after realizing that someone else was also assigned there, his social anxiety kicks in because it might be a total stranger. Minutes later, he sees Kamiya and almost passes out from excitement before expressing how happy he is to be working with someone he knows. Kamiya shares this excitement, and as they stack the shelves together, Izumi thinks back to how they first met each other. Back then, he was only able to meet her because she was on the library committee. The fact that she also happened to be the best player on the volleyball team made it even more difficult for a low-grade simp like him to be in the same room with her, but Kamiya was super chill around him and helped him learn how to talk to baddies without creaming. While they continue attacking the shelves, Izumi asks what she is doing for the festival, and after Kamiya says she is also working in a cave, he asks how her friends are surviving without her. She then admits that they were practically begging her to stay, but she has always preferred the silence in the library. This causes Izumi to recall that she is also pretty famous among the younger athletes in the tournament, and after he asks about it, Kamiya explains that they are the main reason she always escapes to the library. Over a year ago, when Izumi showed up for his first day working in the library, he started glitching because his brain couldn't handle being around someone as hot as Kamiya. She noticed this after he slammed his head into a table, but she was already used to simps losing it over her face card and reminded him that they were in the same grade, so he would chill out. As time went on, Izumi learned to have regular conversations with her, and she also started enjoying his company. Back in the present, Kamiya has just asked Izuma why he seems a lot different than that first day they met, but he gets confused and asks what is different about his behavior. Kamiya then says he seems a lot less nervous around her, probably because he finally got some kitty from his girlfriend. This surprises Izumi since he didn't think she already knew, but she explains that Neko told her all about his love story with Shikamori. When she asks how he managed to convince a hottie like her to date him, Izumi asks why she wants to know, but all Kamiya says is that she is curious. All of a sudden, she shoves him against the wall and admits to being interested in Shikamori. But this further confuses Izumi because now it seems like his usually nonchalant bestie wants to use the scissor technique on Shikamori. Around the same time, the couple pairs are posted, so Shikamori goes to take a look and loses it because Izumi got paired with someone else. Neko gets confused by this sudden anger and can't understand why it's such a big deal. So Hachimitsu explains that the couple pairing game was actually how Shikamori and Izumi started dating. Just then, Shikamori decides to go find the person who got paired with Izumi so she can swap numbers with them. Meanwhile, Kamiya is still interrogating Izumi about his relationship with Shikamura, so he decides to tell her the whole story. Back then, they had just gotten paired together and Izumi naturally had no idea what to do, so he suggested going on a walk together. When they eventually found a photo booth for paired couples, Shikamori decided to act like the man of the relationship and asked for a picture with him. Izumi immediately agreed, but after realizing that he had misplaced his card, he got crushed. Shikamura once again used her perfectly functioning brain and said they could just retrace his steps together, but Izumi insisted that it was pointless because he never finds his stuff after losing it. After Shikamori persuaded him to try again, they spent hours looking for it and eventually had to get him a new card just so they could take a photo together. This causes Izumi to realize that Shikamori was the only one for him, so he summoned the courage to ask her out. After listening to all this, Kamiya admits that it's the best love story she's ever heard, while remaining oblivious to the fact that she is the one who got paired with Izumi. Minutes later, Kamiya drifts into a dream about her non-existent love life. Despite being one of the most wanted girls, she only wanted the one guy who barely reacted to her perfect face. However, before she could use her charms to steal Izumi's heart forever, Shikamori swooped in with her pink hair and did what she had spent all this time thinking about. Left with no other option, accepted their love with a forced smile, but continued hoping she would find some luck with him. Back in the present, she tells Izumi about a new romance movie to get his thoughts, but Izumi hasn't seen it, so he asks for hers. Kamiya then tells him that movies like that are meant for spineless wannabes who never make their move and end up with failed dreams and regret. Before he can ask why she feels this way, Neko shows up and asks Kamiya for a second to talk outside. Once there, she sees Shikamura, who then asks if they can swap number cards so she can be with her man again. Kamiya gets surprised by this, but after Shikamori explains the game and how she wants to be with Izumi, she easily gives her card up. The next moment, Izumi comes out and is surprised to see Shikamori. Kamiya then tells him to take the rest of his shift off, but he refuses and says it would be unfair to leave her alone with all the work. Hearing this causes Kamiya's heart to skip a beat, and Shikamori easily notices this because she feels the same way every time he talks. As a result, she and Neko decide to stay back, and she begins to notice how strange Kamiya acts around her man. Much later, Izumi heads out with the girls and Kamiya also returns to her class, where irrelevant simps like you have been waiting to gush over how beautiful she is. She barely responds to them, of course, because her heart and soul still belong to Izumi. After much thinking, she heads up to the roof to clear her head and realizes that Shikamori is actually really brave because she made the move to date who she wanted, instead of dreaming about it and doing nothing. Right then, Shikamori shows up to return the number card and casually tells Kamiya that she already knows about her feelings for Izumi. At this, Kamiya takes a trip down memory lane to the time Izumi's bad luck caused a bookshelf to topple over. As she offered to help him pack up, he thanked her and called her kind just to express his gratitude, but this simple compliment triggered emotions Kamiya had never felt before. Back in the present, she now realizes that Shikamori knows about these feelings, but for some reason, she isn't trying to throw hands or telling her to stay away from Izumi. On the contrary, she tells Kamiya that she must be a really good person to develop feelings for the embodiment of bad luck. Kamiya then says she never planned to reveal her feelings to Izumi or anyone else because even though she looked forward to seeing him every day, she already knew that his heart belonged to another. After she promises to keep her distance and says her friendship with him was also a mistake, Shikamori rips up the number card like it's meaningless. Before Kamiya can ask why, Shikamura pulls her in for a hug and says there is nothing wrong with having feelings for someone, even if that person is her man. Hearing this immediately triggers a flood of tears as Kamiya breaks down in Shikamori's arms. After bawling her eyes out, she tells Shikamori to go back to her man because he is probably losing his mind searching for her. As Shikamori heads back inside, Kamiya watches her and recalls the feelings she had when they first started dating, but this time, she feels happy that someone like Shikamori is dating Izumi. The next day, Izumi gets nervous because he managed to get an anniversary gift for Shikamori, but he has no idea if she will like it. Much later at school, they enjoy one last day of festival activities before having an after-party to celebrate the classes that raise the most amount of money. To nobody's surprise, Izumi and Inuzuka's group ends up in last place, and while they cry in each other's arms, the girls watch them with pity. Just then, Neko and Hachimitsu ask Shikimori about the photos she took for the couple's game, but she claims she already lost them. Neko then asks when she started losing stuff like her clueless boyfriend, and while she explains, Izumi hears his name and wonders if Shikimori is revealing his secrets. Much later, he invited her to a park and gave her the present. He expects her to hate it, but after seeing her eyes light up, he offers to help her put it on. She agrees and falls even harder when he moves behind her to put the necklace on. However, when he says he wants to stay together forever, Shikimori gets emotional and says he has changed a lot from when they first started dating. After also recalling Kamiya's confession, she admits to feeling scared that other girls would want him if he continues being so kind and amazing to everyone. After she tells him not to change anymore, Izumi says it's too late because he has already changed, and it's all because of her love. He then asks if she doesn't trust him anymore, and she immediately says yes, so he tells her to trust him even more because he only wants her. This makes Shikimori lose control of her emotions, but she stops being sad and promises to fight for him even if the entire world wants his glizzy. With that, they get ready to leave, but she makes him wait and flicks her hair back to remind him that he is dating the hottest chick on the planet. Days later, at school, Inuzuka walks into class and sees Neko having a full-blown meltdown because Izumi fell sick and won't be coming. After they tell him, he says he already knew because Izumi called and asked him to take extra notes. Right then, Shikimori gets upset because Izumi should have asked her for help instead. Inuzuka notices this and gets confused because she now sees him as a rival, which makes no sense since he obviously loves Kitty. Moments later, he asks the girls about it, but they also have no idea why Shikimori treats him harshly, because she never displayed jealousy when they became friends with Izumi. This leads Inuzuka to think that she hates his gut, but then Neko decides to tell him about the one time Shikimori brought him up. She was apparently jealous that Izumi had such a close friend when she was all he would ever need. However, Neko insists that she doesn't hate him and claims she is just jealous. After classes, Shikimori says she wants to walk with Inuzuka since he's going to Izumi's place. Inuzuka gets surprised by this but says yes to avoid looking suspicious. As they both head out, Neko tells Hachimitsu that she has something to do and begs her to stalk Inuzuka and Shikimori because something is bound to happen between the two of them. Minutes later, Shikimori asks Inuzuka to take a detour to a local store so they can get drugs and treats for Izumi. Once inside, she gets confused by all the options, so Inuzuka takes over and helps her pick the perfect one for Izumi. She then proceeds to shop for treats, and after he also helps her with it, she suddenly calls him brother. Inuzuka takes a moment to process what he just heard, but just as he asks why she just called him brother, she runs off to hide how embarrassed she feels. After paying for the treats, she then gives some to Inuzuka, and he gets surprised that she pays enough attention to know the kind of treats he likes. They soon start heading out, only to run into Hachimitsu, who casually admits that she was stalking them before claiming to know exactly why Izumi acts cold around him. She explains that Inuzuka actually looks like her distant older brother, but Izumi refuses to believe this until he sees the expression on Shikimori's face. This realization makes him a little excited because now he can say that Shikimori doesn't totally hate him. Days later, Shikimori enters a bookstore with Neko and freezes in shock when they see Kamiya. Shikimori pauses, unable to figure out her next move, while Neko heads straight to Kamiya to say hi. She then asks Kamiya to join them for a special girls' date, but when Kamiya agrees, Neko wonders if she is in a dream because Kamiya has never agreed to go out with her. As the day progresses, they end up having a lot of fun together, and when Neko slips away for a bathroom break, Kamiya asks Shikimori for her with a claw machine. After Shikimori explains in detail, her slow brain fails to pick up the skill, so Shikimori takes over and easily wins a mountain if treated. She then tries to share and insists when Kamiya says she should keep her winnings to herself. Being treated so nicely by the chick dating her crush lights a fire in Kamiya's heart and makes her obsessed with repaying Shikimori's kindness. Several minutes later, Neko returns and thinks her eyes are playing tricks on her because Kamiya, the most antisocial chick in school, is actually having fun. She had tried countless times to hang out with her in the past, and the other girls eventually had to tell he that it was pointless because Kamiya only liked to be by herself. Much later, they come across a basketball court and decide to pass a little time until two worthless low-budget Kardashians show up and claim they already called dibs on the court. The girls agree to avoid any drama, but then Luma's puffy lips and her bestie challenge them to a game to decide who deserves the court. Once again, they try to ignore it, but after the Botox ambassadors calls them ugly, Shikimori and Kamiya decide to lock in while Neko offers to be the ref. Moments later, they start the game. Shikimori and Kamiya easily drop buckets without breaking a sweat, while the Botox ambassadors soon find themselves too weak to move. They ultimately accepted their own weakness and begged the girls for a selfie so they could all become friends. After this, they continue heading home, and Kamiya uses the opportunity to ask Shikimori if they can actually become friends. Shikimori easily says yes, and this makes Kamiya smile, but then Neko points out the fact that she's acting a lot differently than the antisocial loner everyone knows. Kamiya acknowledges this and apologizes for always turning her down, and this makes Neko see her in a new light, so she calls her a nice person. Kamiya smiles because the last person who said that about her still makes her heart skip a beat. The next moment, Neko says she wants to learn more about her since they just became friends, and after making sure Kamiya is cool with it, she asks for her favorite snack. Kamiya then tells her that it's actually creamy sausages, and Neko initially thinks she's actually talking about the shrimp in your pants. After realizing what Kamiya means, Neko asks if she knows about Izumi and his relationship with Shikimori. Naturally, Kamiya reacts a little differently to this question, and Neko notices, so she takes a moment to think before asking Kamiya for the person responsible for her sudden change in attitude. After Kamiya refuses to say who the person is and just explains that they taught her to stop living in a shell, Neko gets a little emotional and says she could always tell that Kamiya didn't like the way everyone treated her like an outcast. Kamiya also admits that she always wanted to connect with truly kind people like them, so Neko decides to focus on building an amazing friendship together. Several months later, the entire school starts prepping for the annual sports festival. In Izumi's class, the teacher says it's time to pick runners for the relay race, so all line up to draw from a lottery box. Izumi immediately starts praying that he fails and gets picked for an easy sport, but everyone else can already tell that he is about to get the daily dose of bad luck. As expected, he gets selected for the relay, but then Hachimitsu goes up next and prays even more intensely than he did because she absolutely hates physical activity. After also getting unlucky, she breaks down and soaks Izumi with her tears while Shikimori uses her charm to convince another classmate to give up her spot on the relay team. At this, everyone starts getting worried for Izumi because her love has slowly turned into an obsession. With 3 members already, the teacher asks 2 others to volunteer for the team as well, so Inuzuka offers to join them. When Izuki asks why, he says it will be fun running with his friends, so Neko also decides to join the team. At this, Shikimori tries to tell Izumi that the race is bound to be a lot of fun, but he completely ignores her to thank Inuzuka for joining the team. Neko then tells Shikimori to try making herself look good when Izumi is actually paying attention to her. Much later, they hold a team meeting to discuss each other's strengths and weaknesses. Hachimitsu immediately gets the ball rolling by reminding everyone that her fun-sized legs were only designed for walking. After Izumi also says that he is probably going to be the worst runner on the team. Hachimitsu says it's pointless trying to win and admits to feeling better since Izumi is also a loser like her. However, Inuzuka explains that Izumi's only problem is his bad luck because he is actually a really fast runner. Hachimitsu immediately starts bawling her eyes again and calls Izumi a traitor. At this, Shikimori tries to uplift their spirits with a pep talk, but Inuzuka beats her to the chase, while Shikimori fights the urge to turn his head all the way back like a night owl. Neko tells them all to just try having fun since they might never get another chance to be on the same team during a festival like this. Soon after this, they decide to start training, and everyone except Hachimitsu gets excited because she can already tell that training a bunch of talent-lacking weaklings is pointless. Regardless, they start the training session, and after minutes of running like a pregnant sloth, Hachimitsu finally passes the baton to Izumi. However, after a single step, Izumi's legs fall asleep and make him kiss the ground, which surprises absolutely no one. Just as Hachimitsu considers giving up, Izumi gets back up and continues running, so she starts feeling a bit more positive about their chances. Minutes later, she regrets ever agreeing to join the team because her lungs are about to explode, as well as Izumi's. Inuzuka then tells them not to worry because his speed, paired with Neko and Shikimori's athleticism, should be enough to lead their team to victory. Seeing the 3 of them act like it was nothing causes Izumi and Hachimitsu to realize that they have a lot of work to do. Several hours later, Inuzuka leaves with the girls to practice for other events, but Izumi asks Hachimitsu to stay back with him so they can train a little longer. He explains that this might help them get better, and she surprisingly agrees. So they spend the rest of the evening pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. Afterwards, Izumi thanks her for agreeing to train with him, and after saying it's no problem, Hachimitsu explains that she is not actually doing it for him. After admitting that she prefers low-effort activities, she says that the only reason she is going this hard is that it will actually be a memorable experience, like Neko said earlier, and she doesn't want to be the one to disappoint their friends. A couple of days after this, the festival begins, and Izumi becomes nervous because all their extra training might still not be enough to beat pro runners. After looking over at Hachimitsu and realizing that she has already lost the spark she had the other night, he gets worried and thinks of a way to cheer her up. However, he gets called for the first game, called a cavalry battle, and Shikimori gets excited to see him playing the role of a horse with Inuzuka because she didn't think he had enough muscle to hold another person up. Unfortunately, even after all of her cheering and excitement, Izumi's bad luck strikes again and makes their entire team lose the game. After his humiliating failure, Hachimitsu gets ready for her ball toss game and loses courage before it even starts because everyone has been staring at her, wondering how she plans to win with these midget arms. as her teammates all fail to get their balls into the net. She takes her time packing as many as her little arms can carry before launching them into the air. Inuzuka immediately says there is no way those are going in, but her balls keep flying in slow motion and actually make it into the net, surprising everyone. Just then, Hachimitsu hears the rest of the gang cheering for her and decides to lock in for the first time ever. Minutes later, her haters go from roasting her to wondering how on earth she dominated her opponents with ease. Unfortunately, her poor stamina takes her team to second place. While Inuzuka teases her for going too hard, Shikamori commends her on taking the game seriously, and Hachimitsu starts to realize that working hard is not so bad. She then decides to channel all the energy she has left into the relay race. Minutes later, they get ready for the race, but Inuzuka and Neko, and mostly worried about the fact that Izumi might face plant into the ground again. On the other hand, Hachimitsu is still worried that she won't be good enough, so Shikamori takes her hand and claims she is also feeling nervous. Hachimitsu can already tell it's a lie because athletes at her level never feel anxious, but she takes this as Shikamori's way of making her feel better. Moments later, they all get into position and listen for the signal before Neko takes off and easily reaches first place. Unfortunately, Hachimitsu and her little legs are up next, and as expected, she quickly loses the lead and ends up in last place. To make matters worse, she begins losing leg strength and falls, but when Izumi starts calling out to her, she decides to get to him no matter what. As soon as she hands it over, Izumi takes off and prays he can outrun his bad luck, but it quickly catches up and rips his shoes right off. Doubt begins to creep into his mind, but after recalling how hard he trained with Hachimitsu, Izumi presses on with his socks and leaves everyone at a loss for words. Moments later, he manages to reach Shikamori without tripping, and she immediately fires off her nitro boost to regain the lead he and Hachimitsu lost. As she zips through the competition like Reverse Flash on steroids, everyone gets excited to watch her performance. But Inuzuka gets scared because he now has to finish the race for the team. The moment Shikamori hands it over, Inuzuka blasts off like unconscious Zenitsu and maintains the lead all the way to the finish line to secure the win for their team. At this, Izumi runs over to Shikamori to hug her and say that she was the best. While she tries to keep it together, Hachimitsu watches a smile on her face and feels happy that she didn't give up. Years ago, Motoko woke Izumi up for another regular school day, so he got ready and quickly left the house. This time, the Anime gods couldn't find Truck Kun, so they sent a bicycle to smoke little Izumi. Luckily, he survived and went to see the school nurse as soon as he got to school. After patching him up and making sure he wasn't missing any vital organs, she reminded him of an upcoming school trip and assured him that she would be right there to keep him safe if his bad luck spiraled. Hours later, his classmates also told him about the school trip to see if he planned to join them, and after he reminded them that he was basically a siren song for the Grim Reaper, they claimed it was nothing it could manage. This made Izumi think he could actually survive the trip without any problems until one of his classmates had his first near-death experience on their way back home. Bro immediately tracked down the nearest temple to beg the gods for a break or at least some beginner-level accidents that he could easily survive. Back in the present, Izumi has just left school with Shikamori and continues yapping about how good it feels to hang out with her. He then decides to go on another date because it's been a while since their last one. He initially suggests a spa date, and Shikamori agrees since she could use some relaxing. But then Izumi changes his mind and says a date at the amusement park would be better. He then pulls up a picture of a couple having a good time at the park to convince her, but all Shikamori cares about is how she can recreate the kiss with him. Days later, Shikamori decides to go shopping and catches a ride with Fuji, only to dump him as soon as they get to the mall because she still hates his face. She immediately finds the best store for hot girls' clothes, but ends up conflicted because she can't decide which one will make Izumi's sword rise. During their date, eventually, she decides to leave without anything and finds Fuji surrounded by desperate chicks who think he is some sort of hotshot, simply because he was blessed with the face of an angel. After realizing that her brother has zero reas and will soon disgrace the family name if the girls keep talking, Shikamori swoops in to save him and leads the girls to believe that she is his girl. At this, Fuji gets embarrassed that she had to come help him, and Shikamori immediately clowns him for being a simp who can't act right around hotties. Long ago, she would also train in a karate dojo with him, and as she started getting a lot better than some of the guys there, Fuji teased her and often called names just to get a reaction out of her. After one of their training sessions, they returned home to meet a dish that looked like expired dog food from their mom. However, they had no choice and ate it all, but then Fuji said he was going to stop training with Shikamori. Their mom then asked if she still wanted to go without him, and Shikamori said yes because she had started making friends in the dojo. This made their mom happy because it was the first time Shikamori was making a decision to do her own thing. As time went on, Shikamori got even better and gained a reputation for helping weaker students deal with bullies. This was how simps like you started obsessing over her. But when other girls would tell her about it, she barely paid any mind to it since she had no idea what it meant to be in love back then. Eventually, she got to the point where she could finally spar with Fuji and was excited, thinking she could finally teach him a lesson. But Fuji tossed her around like a rag doll to remind her that he was the one who introduced her to martial arts. While walking home, he suddenly asked what kind of umbrella she used, and after she said it was something basic like everyone else, he got upset because he still had the herd mindset. All of a sudden, he decided to quit karate, and she got pissed at this because he had worked his way up to becoming champion. Fuji then told Shikamori to find something she can be passionate about instead of just doing whatever he or their mom wanted. Days later in class, a friend of Shikamori got excited to tell her about a romance manga she was reading, but Shikamori barely knew anything about manga because she only occasionally glanced through the one Fuji had at home. This only made her friend a lot more excited to tell her all about the romance manga, and she even gave Shikamori a copy to read later. Much later, Shikamori was in her room, realizing that there was more to life than fighting with sweaty guys in a dojo. Soon after this, she competed in a karate tournament and managed to win, but right after, she decided to quit and ditched her karate friends to pursue true love. For starters, she worked on her appearance and body, and after months of work, she resumed school looking like a thirst trap. All she had in mind was to find a man to give all her plots to, and that was when she saw Izumi for the first time. He was under a tree, begging the janitor to help him get a ticket that had been blown away. As the janitor tried to grab a ladder, Shikamori offered to help and calmly climbed up to get his ticket while he prayed that his bad luck wouldn't affect her. A couple of days after this, they ran into each other again, so Izumi seized the opportunity to really thank her for the help. After also telling her about his terrible luck, he admitted to feeling happy that they met each other again, and this caused Shikamori's heart to flutter. Her perfect face had become too much to handle at that point, so Izumi tried to run off, but she stalked him to ask for his name. Back at the mall, Shikamori admits to Fuji that she still struggles with insecurities despite coming this far. Before leaving, she spots a super expensive lipstick and becomes obsessed, but since she can't afford it, she decides to leave. Fuji then realizes that she is a lot less different from the little Shikamori that always followed him around like a puppy, so he buys the lipstick. Later that night, Shikamori finds it along with a good luck note from Fuji and realizes that she still has a spot reserved for him in her heart. The next day, she gets ready and uses the lipstick before heading out to meet Izumi. Like always, Izumi pulls up much earlier than they agreed to make sure his bad luck can't get in the way of their date. When Shikamori finally shows, Izumi once again wonders how he managed to bag someone so fine despite having the worst luck in human history. He then decides to just focus on being with her. After they both take in how beautiful the park looks, Shikamori asks if he knows where to go first. So Izumi takes her to the gift shop to get costumes. When he tries to give her bunny ears, she admits that it's cute but refuses to wear them because of a past experience. She then says it would actually look good on him, but Izumi gets upset because he wanted to see her wearing it. Not wanting to disappoint him, Shikamori decides to wear a cape instead, but the skull reminds Izumi of that first movie date where he almost lost bladder control. However, after Shikamori explains how it makes her look like a dark prince, he decides to focus on her beauty and accepts it. With that out of the way, they head to the Sleeping Beauty attraction and get shocked to see that there is a 90-minute wait time. Izumi then explains that it sometimes gets up to 3 hours because it's still a new attraction that tons of people want to see. When they eventually get inside, Shikamori gets confused because she doesn't know anything about the Sleeping Beauty story, so Izumi narrates it to her. She admits that it's actually a good romance story, and when he teases her about not knowing it, she reminds him that romance stories were her entire life at one point. When Izumi asks if she has some major life dreams she plans to accomplish, Shikamori tells him about the time she first discovered romance manga and became obsessed with finding true love. After saying that her dream is to be in love, she says it has already come true because of him. After getting flustered by this, Izumi continues talking to her about a bunch of stuff until they finally get on the ride, while Shikamori quickly falls in love with the play and realizes that she missed out on a core romance story. Izumi passes out because he is already bored with hearing about Sleeping Beauty. Moments later, they get to the part where the prince wakes Sleeping Beauty up with a kiss. So Shikamori looks over and realizes that she is in an alternate version of the story where her prince is a lazy nerd who can't take a hint. After the ride, Izumi suggests going for something that takes less time to actually start, so they spend the rest of the day trying out as many rides as they can. Izumi then starts feeling optimistic because he has never had a date go this well. However, things take a turn when they get to a restaurant to eat and learn that his reservation got messed up. As Izumi prepares himself for more bad news, the restaurant decides to compensate them with the best table in the house, which is usually reserved for super important guests. They gladly accept the gesture, but quickly start feeling weird because they both look so out of place. Izumi especially fears that he sticks out like a sore thumb because he dressed like a construction worker on his day off. Luckily, Shikamori quickly brightens the mood by saying that they only have to focus on each other, when she takes it a step further by asking what he sees in her eyes. Izumi takes a moment to get his thoughts under control before saying that all he can see is himself. Shikamori then says he is the only thing she wants to look at, but instead of letting her riz him up so easily, he claps back by saying she is the only beautiful person he enjoys looking at. Several minutes later, he asks if she wants to do anything else. So Shikamori asks if they can do what was shown in the park's commercial. For some reason, she acts like it's some major event, but Izumi calmly says yes and asks for her hand. She gets flustered, thinking he is finally about to give her the kiss she's been dreaming of. But he just asks if she wants him to walk her to a new spot. After sensing her confusion, Izumi realizes that he got it wrong, so he apologizes and asks what she meant. Shikamori then tells him to forget about it, but as they head out, he recalls seeing the kiss scene from the commercial and realizes how stupid he was. Minutes later, they get on a boat together to enjoy the beautiful view, but Izumi is still worried about the fact that Shikamori wants to make out with him. After racking his brain to figure out a solution, he remembers that they haven't taken a picture together and decides to start with that. However, just as they both get into place, the power gets cut off and they hear an announcement explaining that it will be back on soon. Izumi initially panics since they are floating in pitch darkness, but after Shikamori takes his hand, they see another couple using their flashlight, so Izumi turns his on as well. After talking about how this feels like a dream since they are both alone with no one to distract them, Shikamori kisses Izumi's hand. He once again panics and wonders how to respond to this. But after recalling the day she admitted to feeling scared about their relationship, he decides to act like a man for once and leans in to kiss her on the cheek. The next moment, he falls to his knees, and after Shikamori joins him, he cups her face and says she doesn't ever have to worry about him leaving because he wants to be with her forever. Seconds later, the lights come back on, but Shikamori refuses to stop hugging Izumi and says she is not ready for the night to be over. The next day at school, Inuzuka wonders why Izumi is twitching and tries to ask, but Izumi can barely hear him over his mind replaying the kiss from last night. At the same time, Meiko and Hachimitsu ask Shikamori why she has been acting all day strangely, but she claims it's nothing. However, they already know about the date, so they continue asking until she tells them about the kiss. After learning that it was on her cheek, they get disappointed, but then Shikamori also recalls that she wanted a real sloppy kiss, not the family-friendly moment they shared on the boat. To make her dreams come true, she decides to give even more time and energy to experiencing the best love story with Izumi. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and want to watch Shikamori turn Izumi into the freaky prince of her dreams, smash the like button and comment part 2. Don't forget to subscribe for more recaps and turn on post notifications to always see our posts.